Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. You know what it is. It's the show within a show within a show. The DEX show within a show within a show, I should say, which is those special episodes of Reality Bytes where we get to speak to fascinating fellow Nexthinkers. And I often get asked, actually, by our colleagues, how do we choose who to invite on the show? And the truth is, we all know colleagues at Nexthink we find fascinating, we enjoy talking to, and all different people on the panel and in the Reality Bytes team and wider team make their suggestions, I should say, and we always meeting people who are very passionate about what they do and very interesting to talk to, and our guest today is certainly no exception at all. He's Sergio Mylius. He's a solution consultant, and we had an absolutely fantastic discussion last week about the show, and it's great to welcome him to Reality Bytes. How are you doing today, Sergio?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me. Pretty excited to have a chat with everybody, and big fan of the show myself. So it's an honor to be here today.
It's an honor to have you. And Tim actually isn't here today. He's on his travels. He's in Europe presently and working with customers and such like, I believe. So apologies for that. But you're friends and colleagues with Tim, right? You go back a little bit, no?
Yeah, so exactly. So I met Tim when I was a customer of Nexthink, actually, and when we were doing our sales engagement and understanding more about the product, and Tim came on site on my previous job and talked about his story as a former customer joining Nexthink, and that was a little bit of a spark there. And
cool.
And then we kept talking for a long time after that until I joined Nexthink, actually.
And as I say, you're a solution consultant here, but give us a more specific sense of what your remit is here now.
So I actually work with our U.S. partners here in Nexthink. So I support our channels in tech alliances here in the U.S. So I help our partners understand the product enablement and build offers around Nexthink when they're selling managed services, for example, or they're selling professional services and consulting services. So I'm the tech lead that interacts with those partners here in the U.S.
Got it. Very cool. And you just mentioned when you first met Tim, when you were a customer, and was that actually around your initial encounter with Nexthink, or was there an earlier engagement? I mean, when did you first learn about the company?
It was when I was a customer, actually. I first learned about Nexthink. It was interesting because I used to work for a large global bank, and in large organizations you have that role of a corporate IT. It was like people from the corporations, from headquarters, and we got a message from them. Hey, we just have this great tool, EUC troubleshooting tool,
cool.
Quotes.
Yeah.
And then you guys should look at it. And that's when everything started. We engaged Nexthink and the sales team and did a POV, very, very successful. And that's kind of how I learned about Nexthink, and I start to actually like the solution and the impact of the solution. So.
Very cool. And if you do listen often to this show, Sergio, you'll already know that when we do these special episodes of Reality Bytes, I often forget to mention that it is not just me on the panel today asking you questions. We are joined also by Oriana and Sean specifically, and I'll hand the mic over to Sean now, who has the next questions for you.
Hey, Sergio. How you doing?
I'm well, Sean.
I was curious. So before actually you joined Nexthink, you worked in the corporate banking sector, and you got introduced from colleagues about the tool. Do you remember exactly like kind of the proof of value that you witnessed, or how is the tool impacting your team and the company those first few months or years? I know it was way back in the past, but if you can maybe tell us about anything that happened during that time.
It was quite interesting because, again, as anyone that worked in IT for many years, as I did, you kind of, and especially, with the career where I went from data centers, infrastructure, collaboration tools, EUC, service delivery, and observability, I got a chance to see, kind of a very large realm within the IT infrastructure. So when Nexthink came about, we were facing the normal things that large corporations face. We have issues with our patching. We had bad reputation from a support coming from our executives, right? There was a lot of finger pointing going on in the organization, and especially working in the bank was really challenging because you had these long times to dispatch people to the branches. They were spread all over the northeast of the United States. So when something happened, we have to send people out there. So then when we got to do the POV, got to understand, so we kind of look into three things, right? What are the proactive things we can do? What's the real time visibility, right? Turn on the lights, as we like to say. And then on the bank side, it's forensics, right? We call forensics, like how can we help our security posture, compliance, that was really had to do with the patching. So we kind of, the solution consultant at the time and the salesperson at the time help us kind of hone in those main areas and start to see the benefits and the value. And right within the POV, we were able to do some amazing things, unlock value, and it was pretty out, although it was lengthy just from a bureaucracy point of view, but it was very easy to convince our leadership the value of Nexthink overall. So it got upgraded also. Like my air quotes of EUC troubleshooting was just kind of how it was introduced, right? Eventually we see the breadth in the depth of the solution, and we're pretty pleased to kind of move forward with it.
Very cool. Now, I know like one thing is liking a tool or a vendor. Another thing is wanting to go join ranks with that vendor. And that's a big jump for some people. Like I have my favorite technology tools. I don't know if I would go work with them, but something happened there with you and the vendor Nexthink at the time, and now your employer. I guess I'm curious to know, like, who or what influenced you to make the switch? I know you mentioned being introduced to Tim very early on. Was it just Tim's charming good looks and personality? Was it the tool? What happened there?
So I think Tim has a amazing way to articulate value and articulate the changing factor of Nexthink. But actually, my story starts way before even I was even aware of Nexthink, right? So, and I had two pivotal moments for me. Is I had a colleague on a former job that he came up with this quote. I don't even know if it's his quote, but it's a quote that he said all the time and kind of stuck with me. Is everyone deserves a great computer, right? And when I heard that, it's like, okay, this is great, right? Everyone deserves a good computer. That was kind of number one, and that stuck in my head, and I continued to do my work and kind of went back and stay there. And then when I was doing actually a leadership program in Harvard, we had an exercise to go about understanding what's your purpose, right? What is your personal purpose, right? And after doing a lot of thinking, I came up with, well, my purpose is actually help people thrive through technology, right? So everyone deserves a great computer. I want to help people thrive through technology, right? And how can I had this question for many years. How could I execute on this, right? What kind of company, what kind of job, what can I do to actually execute on these different things, right? So when I got involved with Nexthink through Tim and through the sales, as a normal, like, let's look at the new software that helps us solve problems, right? I really started to understand the outcomes, right? And then I started to see that those outcomes that I could see, the benefits I see myself, plus all my experience and all my skills, that's the way I could cause a bigger impact. That's the way I could actually deliver on my purpose, right? So that was really what was that was kind of a moment. So when I realized that then I joke with, I start bugging Tim, I start bugging Jeff and Nick, which were the A's and the SEs at the time, to learn more about Nexthink, about the culture, about the purpose, delight people at work, right? That's aligned to what I was just said. So those things all kind of came together, and I realized that would be a great fit, right? And obviously, I'm very glad that my manager today and all the hiring team that I went through the process, they thought I was going to be a good fit too. So now almost 3 years later, here I am, and can't be happier, and totally aligned to to those two things that were really important to me as a person in to fulfill the goals that I have in my career. So
Excellent. And I know, having spoken with you before in the past, you did mention one thing that really stuck out to me. I think you said once that you feel like you kind of have a superpower now working with Nexthink that gives you a little bit of an advantage, especially interfacing with customers and such. Could you maybe expand on that for other folks out there, IT professionals, or even in different industries that are sort of searching and trying to identify what their superpower is?
yeah, and I call it superpower because I think when we are interacting with other people, right, in our role of making everyone understand the value of Nexthink is really, we need to build trust, right? So when we're talking about the outcomes of Nexthink, the impact, I can, since I was a customer and I come with that background of implementing so many different things in my career, interacting with so many different teams within a very large organization, and then understanding the fit of a solution like Nexthink, I can talk about my own experience, my testimonials, the metrics that I improve, the interactions I had with upper management when I was selling inside the product or demonstrating the value, right? So I can those true life stories, and most importantly the outcomes, right? And also the catches, right? What are challenges that you're going to face when you're trying to sell this internally, right? It's not just quote unquote another salesperson talking. It's someone that actually been through it, lived it, and really solved different problems, right? And I think the secondary part of it is not just my own experience, but also, as I mentioned a little earlier, is how do we bring every people within IT together and understand the value of a solution like this? Like, well, how can we make sure that other organizations, other parts of the organization, they don't think that this is an EUC troubleshooting tool. It has a little bit of everything, right? So the network guys love it. The infrastructure people love it. The application people love it. And that's just love it because, oh, it's a cool piece of tech. It's because they're tangible outcomes and tangible benefits for them as well. So in having be able to talk that with confidence, with trust, and with all the background that I actually implemented, that is my superpower. And I can see in the body language of people that I interact with, in how people react to these comments, that they truly believe and they truly trust my opinion and my position. So that's what I call my superpower.
I love that you have that superpower, and I'm curious about how you think, in addition to some of those advantages that you're bringing to Nexthink with your experience, what more generally do you think IT professionals who are transitioning to a software vendor bring to the table that gives them an advantage? Because we've talked a little bit now about all the ways we benefit, and you and I have talked before because I find your insights are really unique and help give us a great perspective. So I'm interested, for other people who might be looking to make that transition, what strengths should they lean on?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a great question. I think the real life experience, in I think I like to say the scars from the field, right? So it's I think when you are in the IT operations side of the world, it's late nights, a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of challenges, a lot of issues, right? And people usually don't think that that's something that you can carry on, right? Because, oh, I just did this, I solved the problem, great. But these are the type of insights, and these are the type of these are the types of what's the word? The type of baggage that people don't realize the value until you use it again, right? And in one super important element, and I see this over and over again as I'm talking to partners and I'm talking to customers, is really see where the glue is needed, right? To make the pieces to work best. So when you have a baggage of IT operations, and you have the interaction with all these different areas, and when I look at Nexthink as a glue in many ways to make the end user compute team have a better conversation with the network team, have a better conversation with the monitoring team, have a better conversation about EUC team. Because at the end of the day, right, going back to, everyone deserves a great computer. The computer that you have in front of you right now is what you interact with the organization, right? If you're not having good experience, it can be so many different things, but the ability for us to go and put ourselves in the seat of a user, of an employee, right? And be able to tell other teams, what could be the challenge and what could be the issue, what's actually happening, giving that visibility, turning the lights on, right? In understanding when engaging, right? So I think from your question, Oriana, is really understanding the connection points, right? And if you haven't been and lived there, it's going to be hard to understand when is the right time to talk to the network people. What matters for the application folks? What are the important things that the monitoring team want to have on the screen to be able to have a end-to-end visibility into the organization? So that's the key element of coming from the IT corporate world into our world, where we need to explain and advocate and evangelize the value of Nexthink to organizations that haven't been able to see that yet.
I agree. Those insights are so valuable. And like you said, you don't really know until you've lived it. So I guess I'm something I'd really like to follow up on too is you mentioned that sort of how impactful that quote is. You keep coming back to it. And I'd really love to hear a little bit more actually about it sounds like you found sort of a very clear mission statement. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you think IT professionals can benefit from having that sort of clarity of purpose that you seem to have, or how to find it.
So I think the very first thing I would say is that you look inside, right? So like finding your purpose is something that I was very skeptical about, when I first heard about it. Like think about that as too much of soft and not really, especially we're coming, IT people usually engineering focus and not super not super focused on that side. But the true was really that is really where you take the time to look inside, think about what matters to you, what impact you want to cause. And I would recommend a book that was very life changing for me. It's called Discover Your True North by Bill George. So that's one recommendation. If anyone wants to go through that exercise of understanding and finding your purpose, that's an amazing book to read. And then once you find that, you really start looking at what organizations or what type of activities that will allow you to take that journey. Maybe it's not going to be a job, right? I got a job in a company that I love, but it can be doing your own thing, opening your own company and taking the risks, right? Try, fail, try again, file again, find it again. For me, it was 2.5 years until the time I made that realization, until I joined Nexthink. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but I think having that clarity, taking the time to look inside, understand where you want to go, understand your purpose, right? And you may, in being intentional about it, right? That's kind of the main thing. Like, don't let anyone make decisions about your career for you. You need to be on the driver's seat for that. And once you have a purpose, once you have a goal, it's so much easier to go after and define a plan to actually execute on that.
That's so great. And you're really speaking my language with the book recommendation. Do you have any other sort of final advice that you'd like to give to somebody specifically making a career change between corporate to software or vice versa?
Again, don't be afraid to try and fail, right? So I think that's one main advice I would say, right? So we're not gonna always get it right the first time. You may or may not get a good a good, you know, a hiring experience or interviewing experience. These are things that are not necessarily always great, but fail, try it out, and improve. Right. So I think every attempt is an opportunity to learn and grow and do better. So I think that's one way to really explore and get it right. So
Absolutely. And I think that's so relevant to so many people right now. Thank you. Those are, I think, actually a lot of really, really good insights for people. So who knows if that will inspire people who are either excited to join Nexthink or maybe strike out into the industry.
yeah,
Quite so,
my pleasure.
Oriana. And I was just thinking that we often ask people, Sergio, at the end of these shows, what their favorite thing about being a Next Thinker is. And I think I may have articulated my own favorite thing about being a Next Thinker, which is the amount of interesting and passionate people you get to talk to on a regular basis working here. This is certainly no exception, sir. It's been lovely to have you on. But that last question still remains, Sergio. What is your favorite thing about being a Next Thinker now?
So I think and as someone that worked in large global organizations for many years is really the very strong culture that we have, and the willingness to help from everywhere. So even if I'm calling Sandeep in India, I'm calling Nathan in the UK, or I'm calling let me find another name here. I'm trying to be Sean in Spain. Let's say Sean. There hasn't been in 3 years a single time that no one willingly responded, willing to help, and getting engaged with that. And obviously, I think that tells a lot about the company, tells a lot about the culture, and not just the culture, but how we actually maintain that, right? And how we interact with each other. So that's one thing that I like the most. And you can edit that out or not, but we have this unwritten rule that we don't hire assholes. So that's another thing that I can tell you every day. I haven't come across anyone like that in the whole 3 years that I've been here, but it's one of the great things about the company as well.
How did I make it through the interview process, Sergio? Well, listen, I had no idea about this rule. I'm going to have to apply it more stringently going forward. And I like that you've given Sean's location away. That's right. Listeners might not be aware, but Sean is our American in Spain. But maybe more on that another day.
Great. Now my life is at risk. Thanks, Sergio.
Yeah. The paparazzi going to be on him. Going to be on him.
I did well, yeah. So I did say that was this Sean, right? I could have just been giving names randomly of people in
yes,
parts of the world. Like you also added that to Sean. It's not just my fault.
Over here, it's actually Seon, so it's okay. It's all right. Nobody can pronounce it.
You've covered it up masterfully there, Sergio. But as Oriana says, some really inspiring stuff there. Absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, Sergio, so much for joining us. Hope to have you on again sometime.
Anytime. Thank you very much for having me. I had a great time talking to you guys, and looking forward for the next episodes coming out as well.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.